Now, still in religion, we move to the flood and what they have to say about the flood. To start, you have to be able to stretch your thinking past the thinking of most of the prevailing scientists of today. The keys are found in the Carolina bays and their formation. A smaller amount of research will show you that there are bays from South America to Russia. And there are. I did the research, and there are Carolina bays from South America, the upper part, all the way to Russia, clear through the United States and Canada, up into Russia. Further research will also show you that many researchers feel that the bays are caused by an impact from an extraterrestrial source, which means comets or something, like that, very large impact objects that are not little teeny comets, and they aren't meteors, and they aren't snowball comets, but they're something very, very huge and covered a lot of area. The impact can be space explosions or a huge ice mass blasted from the glacier. In any case, no impact site has been found that will give us the size needed to cause such an event. What did they say? They said, you got these Carolina bays all over the upper part of South America, the Gulf of Mexico area, and in the United States, all of the area south through Texas and on up into the Carolinas, and then you go on up into, now not having the impact sites everywhere, but then you to each place we're talking about. So then you go on up into Alaska, and you find these impact sites up there that are strange Carolina bays. And the thinking that you have to do is change your thinking, because these things are found and they're not delineated as to what they are. What are we saying? Michigan is the most obvious impact site, followed by 2 or 3 impacts at the Hudson Bay, major one at what is now the North Pole, perhaps one in the Gulf of Mexico, which hasn't been found yet. And the results were absolutely devastating, and they were all at approximately the same time. The surface of the Earth traveled 2,000 miles to the southeast, which brought the North Pole from Hudson Bay to where it is now. That movement caused the supposed ice age to end. Not true, as it was just a movement of the ice west by 2,000 miles. So you can see that if it was a comet impact, it came down on Hudson Bay and Michigan and the North Pole and maybe the Gulf of Mexico. If it wasn't, there's also the possibility that it was the lightning strike from, I'm going to say a close contact from another planet, but you'd have to go to the electric universe to find out what in the world we're talking about there. The interaction of 2 planets causing what would appear to be an impact site, but it isn't really. It's an impact of lightning changing the shape of the Earth. So if it was a comet, now you understand that this is suspiciously, having done the research in this area, it's very complicated, because you have 12,500 BC, you have something that happened, and then 8,000 something, and then 5,000 something, and even during the time of Christ there was something that happened in terms of flooding the earth and impacts and so on and so forth, and doing a little research in impacts that they don't ever tell you anything about. You've got this tremendous amount of comets from about the time of Christ on, which are recorded, and these are horrendous, like every other day comets. And we don't have that happening now. So what we have is we have the scientists looking at the Earth the way it is now and saying, well, we don't have any of those things, so that can't be what it is. Like, you're telling me that you think everything's the same as it always was? One of the things that I have always had a problem with is the Grand Canyon. In the Grand Canyon, you have these layers of orange, red, black, white, layer after layer, and they say, well, it was caused by the thousands and hundreds of thousands of years of there was this and then this one here was thousands of years later and millions of years, and all I have to say is, what changed? You got a definite, distinct dividing line between this color orange and this color black, if you will. What changed? What changed during this 2,000, 10 million years, whatever they're bound to determine that they know, but they don't have a clue. But there's a change, definite line, and a sudden change, and nobody says anything about the fact that if everything's calm and everything's going along, how can you go from orange to black in the water? You understand what I'm saying? What did we have? Orange comets hitting the Earth, then black comets hitting the Earth. What we had? What? None of it makes any sense. And in fact, when you get down to it, all of the physical changes of the Earth make absolutely no sense. So one of the things that we're looking at is the possibility that the Earth got hit by something at some point in time from about 12,500 BC onward that caused the Ice Age, which wasn't an ice age, but it impacted the Earth and moved the crust 2,000 miles to the southeast. And that puts the North Pole way up at the North Pole. He used to be at the Hudson Bay, and that gets us to the point where we realize that it's going to take a book to explain. And they said book 6, and so I don't know how this relates to. We started out with the 3 books of the first 3 books and why you're here, and then all of a sudden we go to book 4 and 5, which are a better explanation of how you could change the life that you're living and be able to do what you're sent here to do. And then they say you're going to write book 6. And what is that? Well, the information that is given in terms of history, because we're coming to or are in the information cycle, it's all wrong, and it needs to be straightened out, and it needs to be explained. So one of the things that we look at, we say, if a comet big enough to make Michigan the impact site, which is one of the things that they keep saying, then the possibility is that the flood had something to do with those comets impacting. And if they did, one of the things that they point out is that the comet impact would cause the groundwater on the entire Earth to come gushing up out of the Earth and not rain, or maybe rain too. But I mean, basically, the Noah flood said that the water came up out of the Earth. Well, the water doesn't come up out of the Earth for no reason at all. It's got to be something. And you hit the Earth with a baseball bat that's big enough to shake it and make the surface move 2,000 miles to the southeast. You might have it hit hard enough so that the groundwater comes squirting out over in the area where the Bible was talking about the flood. And obviously then the coming of the winds and the rain and the tremendous destruction, because boy, you take the land and move it 2,000 miles to the southeast, you're going to have a lot of destruction. You're going to have water that comes up over the land because the water doesn't move as quick as the land did. You know? And then second you have that, you have places where the water evaporates quicker, and then you have rain, and you have on and on it goes. Tremendous thing, and man is over and over. You see these new scientists, the younger new scientists, that are saying, there's something wrong here, and I think that man has forgotten what happened. He knows something's happened, but he's forgotten what it was. And wouldn't you? I mean, if everything that you had in your little village or city or whatever disappeared because of the tremendous destruction of the water and the earthquakes and the rain and stuff, and you were hiding in a cave and you came out and everything was gone, and when you have a problem remembering, and the noise, you can't even imagine the trumpeting noise that you would get from the earth sliding its crust down 2,000 miles to the south-southeast. You see, you just have no conception of what might have happened. In the waters, they say that in Genesis 8 of the King James Version, it said, "And God remembered Noah and every living thing and all the cattle that were with him in the ark. And God made the winds to pass over the earth, and the water assuaged, and the waters grew." If you want to talk about that, the fountains also of the deep and the windows of heaven were stopped, and the rain from the heaven was restrained. So, and then he goes on to say, the water returned from off the earth continually, and after the end, 150 days, the water was abated. What are they saying? Somehow or other, God remembered Noah and all the living things and put a stop to the destruction. It didn't go on forever, so the rain from heaven stopped, the windows from heaven were stopped, and the rain from heaven was restrained. The waters returned from off the earth continually, which is what we've talked about, is the flowing of water back into the ocean was a lot of work. I mean, you had water everywhere. So the water came from two sources, the rain and the fountain of the deep. The sources of the rain would be obvious, but the waters from the fountains of the deep would be much harder to explain without a massive impact that the earth took. The destruction was tremendous and obliterated all the structures of earth except a few isolated places and the objects which confuse archaeologists today. See, this is almost the beginning of Book 6. The history of multiple comets' impact is lost to all, but the subconscious of man, and that's what we were talking about. The book writers of today are saying, I think we forgot something, and this isn't as comfortable and smooth as everybody wants to pretend it is, and the history of things is just not the way they're laying it out, and if you get to where I am, you begin to realize that some things are hidden purposely. I don't know why. I'll be doing research on Book 6, and as I'm doing the research on Book 6, I find out all these things that are not given any kind of history at all, but would appear to be true. The dates are wrong. The Neanderthal is described wrong. The previous races of upright, two standing on 2 feet entities are all, but I don't know what. They're not valid. It just isn't valid what they consider the history to be. So all of the history is just not valid. Not saying it didn't happen. I'm saying it's all mixed up. It needs to be stripped and taken a look at and placed where it belongs, and said what happened here. But we haven't got to that yet. You can still see the mountain terraces. I talked about that before, but the mountain terraces being built on the sides of these tremendous hills or mountains, if you want to call them that, and no valley farming soil to grow on. There was only, it was water down there in the valley. So they had to use terraces, and they did their best to grow their food in these terraces, and you see them all over the place. And there really isn't much of a explanation for all these terraces and these high places. There's no other explanation. It makes no sense. The number of surviving humans was low until about 6,200 BC. So, and that was when the gods began building cities and farms on the dry land. What they did is it took that long for the land to be drained, maybe not totally, but at least to the point where you could begin to do cities and farms and things like that, because it was just too dang much water all over on the earth. The best building structures were built then, and that was another thing that we see that's really strange. The closer we come to present day structures, the less in size and quantity and quality and beauty. We're talking about structures now. Again, the reason was a totally logical one from the previous race on Earth, and it was its central engineering design was sound and the vibration near sound. So they had the ability to do weird things, this previous race. And again, it makes it sound like maybe we should throw all this in book 6. But one of the things that you're not going to get past too far is that the flood was tremendous flood. It was an awesome, horrible event. And they all are saying, it looks to me like we've lost memory of that event. Well, if, all but just a few human beings were erased, you can understand that we've lost our memory. So, and the scientists, there's something, they're hiding something. They throw away objects that don't fit their gentle change theory that's what happened. So we'll go into that in book 6, so we won't go into it now.